Hey everyone, welcome back. Another episode of Christian's Conversations with today. I'm lucky enough to be joined by Kristen Hermanson, who has an extensive career in the entertainment industry. So we're going to talk a little bit about her past and kind of what the job market's been like for her during her journey in today's world. So Kristen, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining.
Of course, I'm glad to be here.
So I know we had a little bit of conversation before we started. So if you wouldn't mind giving everybody a little bit of background into what you've done in the past and the industry you worked in.
Sure, I'll do it as a super quick kind of burst of everything that I've done. So, once I graduated from college, I got my degree in communications. So, the actual field and industry that I want to get into is exactly what I got my degree for. I ended up wanting to do what a lot of other people in SoCal want to do, which is you want to work for the entertainment industry. And I was very grateful that I was able to get in. My first job actually was with the president of worldwide television distribution at MGM. And that was a definite, real hard crash course on getting into the entertainment industry. I only lasted about 3 months. The drive was long, and my boss he was a good guy, but it was not a good fit for him and we both agreed on it. I ended up leaving and going to Disney, which was fantastic. I ended up as a game geek for those people who remember the days of Fry's, and you would go and build your own like gaming desktops, or you were buying Alienware where they built everything for you. I was one of the nerds that sat in Fry's and I would build my own gaming console. And I ended up getting on the Disney Online platform, which was really kind of cool. They hadn't really figured out what they were doing yet. So I ended up working to a couple different bosses in there. My last boss before I left Disney was with the CTO of the company. So it was really interesting to kind of get this really fun idea of where Disney was going, not just from a parks perspective and not from more of an entertainment where you get to see stuff on TV or on film, but you get to see everything that they were doing on the back end that was more of a consumer facing engagement with Disney. I left there and I ended up deciding to go to Paramount. Now, fun fact, my mom used to work on the Montel Williams show. And the Montel Williams show used to film on the Paramount lot. And I remember going with her once or twice, and it was so cool. And I was on the back lot and I had to stay in the shadows. So it was really kind of fun for me to be able to then work on the Paramount lot. I was in one of the favorite buildings that everybody sees with the big gates. I was in the Blue Dorm building. And I worked for almost 22 years in home entertainment. And I was there during the big boom days of when home entertainment was everything. When you bought stuff on VHS, I'm not dating myself, I was young. um, where you'd buy VHS, or you got your DVDs, or you got a Blu-ray, or an HD, or a UMD for those who are watching who really know anything about entertainment on the home entertainment side. And I was lucky enough to actually start under our business transformation that we started in 2004 to actually create a comms team. And I was a part of that. And we had no idea what we were doing. We were the only one that got approved for the Paramount lot globally. So if you think of all of our offices all over the place, there were only a couple projects per location that we were able to get cleared. The Paramount lot actually only got one, and that was our project. Because at the time, the biggest moneymaker was home entertainment. So if something didn't do well in theaters, it would do well on the home entertainment side. We would find a way to do it. But we didn't have really a strategic way in order for us to capture all of our product information. And we really kind of cohesively brought all of our divisions together. So when you think about all the different people who have to make up product that you're going to get, whether you're getting it from any studio, you have to have an operations team, a creative team, a sales team, a marketing team, a finance team. And all of these people speak different languages. I call it business language. So everyone's talking about something differently. And then you had sales that needed to somehow figure out what everyone was talking about. We had to put things together in a very cohesive, best in class way so we can pitch to people like Amazon or Target or Walmart or any of the top distributors in North America. So I was a part of the team, the ragtag crew, that got to actually put all of these things together. And we created the best in class systems. We created the best in class presentations. We really made sure that all of the things that we were doing, we were the funnel for all of our accounts, all of their feedback, everything that they needed. And then we were the ones that then worked directly with the teams to go, this is what we need to have if we're going to sell product. You have all the skill sets. You are the masters of your groups. However, there's specific information that we need to be able to gather. We need to put it together, and then we need to give it to accounts. It makes things easier for our accounts to get everything. If there's verbiage or things that we need to get directly to the consumer, we need to be able to do that. So I was a part of the team that got to create that. I don't know a lot of people who get to usually say, I created a team, but at the same time, when I was laid off last year, I was the lone one standing. So when I left, that team ended up ending. It was kind of poetic in a weird way. I loved that team. I loved my team. It was great. We did a lot of amazing things. And, I think the toughest thing about comms is that a lot of times we don't get a budget. So we have to try and figure it out. How are you going to engage? Regardless of who your end user is going to be, meaning, are you doing it directly to the consumer? Are you doing it to vendors, to clients, to accounts? Are you engaging with senior staff? Are you engaging with employees? Whoever your audience, we have to be able to tell a story. We have to provide resources that make it meaningful for them. And I think that was one of the things that we really spearheaded when I was at Paramount, and that it was a constant evolving of learning, of making sure that anything that we were delivering, we were constantly in that mode of making it better. We never looked at it as we did something wrong or we didn't provide something. It was just, okay, this is a learning moment. So we need to take that. We need to figure out how we do better. And then we push forward. There's no reason to kind of waste our time on thinking of all the things that we coulda, shoulda, woulda, and thought about how do we transition that into how can we make things great. So we were usually the forefront of asking people, hey, is this what your account needs? Hey, is this everything that you can hit on? Hey, can we get all this stuff instead of what you're currently providing it? What do we need to do in order to get that? We were the problem solvers, the big thinkers. We were the ones trying to get in front of everything. So in a nutshell, that's a pretty long description of what I did. But yeah.
It's always impressive, doesn't matter the industry, when you have to build something from scratch. Because you're having to get buy-in from people that never had to do these things before. And especially for something like that, where, like you mentioned, there's no budget involved. It's not something planned for. You have to do a couple different things. You have to sell your idea and then make it happen. And like you said, it's you learn as you go. So that's definitely something, anybody should be proud on. Every time you build something from scratch, it's always, a win, whether it be from a personal perspective or from a business perspective. Being the fact that you grew this team and built this team, and you kind of, like you said, were the last person standing at that time, something to be proud of. Bittersweet though, or how did that feel, at the end in a sense?
It was bittersweet because there were things that I was going, I called them like my impactful moments. Like these were things that not a lot of people get to do. And I was grateful that I got to do it. One of the first things that we had done is we did not have some other companies, like when I was at Disney, we had Oracle. And so we had, a backbone for us to track a lot of information. And we were on an enterprise backbone. So we did everything through Microsoft, but we didn't have like a repository for all of this. We didn't have a process for all of us to cohesively work together. And we had to come up with a way that we could categorize all of this data. And there's a ton of data. Even though if you think you build product, you go to Walmart and you buy something, you're like, hey, I bought the new Mission Impossible, or I just bought Naked Gun, or I'm getting the digital thing to Naked Gun. There's so much work that has to go on the back end in order to make it look great. It's almost like a live performance. You have no idea what chaos is going on behind the scenes. But for what everyone sees, it looks great. And I'm sure everyone thinks like, oh, it's so much fun. I'm like, it's a lot of work. You're burning your candle at both ends. However, my big transitional, my big moments when I was at Paramount, I'll say at Paramount, one was building an entire system that we didn't have before. We mirrored it on a couple systems that we were able to see, but we had to build it from scratch. But because we had to make sure that for all of our stakeholders within all the teams within home entertainment and all the stakeholders that were outside of home entertainment that needed to be able to gather this or at least engage with this data, we had to build something, an interface and a repository that could hold all of this, that you could run reporting out of, and it would engage with all of our current systems that were already there. So being able to do that and get buy-in from so many different teams, and it's still used almost 20 years later, that's kind of that's a really cool moment for me of going, I did something right. I did something that was transformational. And And that is really something that allows you to kind of have a humbling moment. After that, we ended up realizing we didn't build in a lot of our dates worldwide to capture every format, every single thing that we need to do, which then has algorithms that are attached to it that then feeds into that massive system I just built. So then I had to build that, and we had to be able to make sure it worked for everybody and that it was able to engage with all of our systems. And we still got buyouts from every single stakeholder again. I got to do that again, which was really kind of cool. I also built in a lot of things that weren't as big, but they were at the forefront before Paramount Global was doing them. I was asking for them. Like nobody was using SharePoint as a way for us to engage with one another. So if I needed to talk to someone who worked in home entertainment in Australia and they needed materials, I built out a SharePoint site where I could say, here's all your stuff. You can get it whenever you want to. It was a way in which for us to make sure that the appropriate information was being shared and people weren't kind of gathering things on their own on one of our other drives. So being able to say, oh yeah, I built that. I came up with that process. I had to build all that out on my own because no one was doing it anymore. Like no one had done it yet. I think in the past 10 years at Paramount, they started embracing SharePoint. But prior to that, they didn't. So when I hard launched in 2007 with it, I felt kind of good that I was able to do that. So there are these pulse moments that you get to say, oh, hey, I did that. And from then on out, you have some facelifts that happen with all of it, but nothing that's as, I guess, transformational as those moments were for me. And I was building up to doing another one, which I was really excited about. And I didn't get to do it because I ended up getting laid off. So I passed the torch on to those who were still there. Paramount's lost half its staff globally from where it was when I was there. So there are not as many of my lovely cohorts as I used to hang out with. I passed the torch and I'm hoping that someone else can take that and they can make that their transformational moment. So there's a moment of, when you're young and you're in your career, you really want to make sure that you prove yourself. And when you get those moments, it's really kind of that you're like, I can do this. I have value. I do great things. And I've had those moments, which is pretty phenomenal. But I will say I am hungry to continue to do that. I need some more of those moments. And I know I can do those moments. It's just in this current job market, it's trying to find an employer who's ready and willing to go, yes, we need you. I can come in and I can go, what do you want to do in the first 60 days? What is your short-term plan, which is 6 months to 1 year, in my mind, unless they think it's something different. But also then going, what do you want to do long-term? And how do we reach those goals for you? Because that's what I do. I help facilitate all that. So, we'll see how it goes. And cross your fingers for me.
Absolutely. Being in the entertainment industry for over 20 years, what's the biggest misconception people have from the outside looking in when you're working in entertainment?
The biggest misconception is everyone thinks it's all play. Like you get to hang out with actors all the time. And you don't. You don't. It is, I will say, you are still dealing just like any job in corporate America. You're going to have to get stuff done. The misconception I think people don't realize is how much actual work it takes to get product to market, whether you're seeing like the Naked Gun movie going out, and that's now out in theaters. The amount of time and effort it takes, and the difference between seeing stuff that you see on small screen, like TV, comparative to theatrical, or what we do, which is then we market it out in that different channel. So it's like you see it on TV or you see it in the movie theater, and then all of a sudden now you have a way to digitally engage with it, or you can actually buy it and hold it in your hand and you can play it impromptu as is. I will say, being on the lot, I was able to engage with some really cool cats, like hanging out with Tom Cruise, or being able to see Angelina Jolie and her daughter, or bumping into Renee Zellweger when she's in the coffee bean right on the lot. I mean, there are some cool, almost getting run over while I was pregnant by the cast of NCIS LA. Because they were in their carts, or, I was, different shows were there. So if you're watching Glee, all that stuff happened on the Paramount lot. So there are these crazy moments that never happen like out in the real world. But when you're in this bubble on the Paramount lot, that can happen. However, you got a lot of egos. You got a lot of timelines that you have to hit. So if you're staying up till midnight to try and get things done because someone needs it tomorrow to be able to hit a due date, you're doing that. Now, does that mean you have to stay on the lot? Prior to COVID, yeah, you were on the lot until midnight before you could leave to get your stuff done because it had to be done. So it's been weird because for me, I'm wanting to break out into different industries. So from an entertainment perspective, you really need to understand it is fast paced. You are going to be engaging with a lot of different egos. So you need to be aware. You do need to have a little bit of a rough skin because you sometimes have people that will unfortunately lash out. And are they meaning to do that? You're probably not the actual person they're lashing out on. They're just under a lot of stress to get things done because you have to work under different timelines than a lot of other people. And the way that Paramount ran as a company, we met market demand. So we weren't as rigid with our timelines of deliverables as say someone else who I could say like Universal or Warner Brothers did. They would usually stay hard and fast that this is the date and then you would back into it. But I think when it comes to the perks, of course, seeing talent or being able to go to early screenings or being able to engage with people who are that creative who can come up with this kind of content. That's really cool. There's never really an opportunity to be able to do that. But on the flip side, it's just like any industry now. Like before, when you tried to get into entertainment, you'd have to know someone to usually get in because it's really this tight circle. There are only so many people who do it. Now, in the job market, you have to know someone just to get past HR, just to try and get into a hiring manager. So it feels very similar to how it was for me 20 years ago trying to break into the entertainment industry. So there's a lot of cool stuff, but there's just still a lot of hard work that you got to be able to realize you got to put into it.
It's a big business. It's just you're in kind of in a sense, a cooler aspect of business. Where you get to see the
Oh,
glitz
for
and the
sure.
glam of what everyone, gets to see on the big screen, or nowadays mostly probably on their small screens in their home. You mentioned that you're interested in like moving past the entertainment industry because you've been in there for, over 20 years. What challenges are you looking to accomplish outside the entertainment industry?
I think the biggest challenge that this is just my perception to all the, recruiters and people in TA who I've been grateful to meet. Don't take this the wrong way, but I think they can't see past entertainment. They don't understand it's a business just like anything else. It is a business and it is driven specifically by cash. So return on investment, so your ROI is very high. And I think people don't understand that it is a business, or they think that, you do fly a little loose. So I think there's that misconception of what someone does when you say, "Oh, I worked at Paramount." Like if they look at my resume, I think some of the other misconceptions and things that are difficult are, 65% of a role, most of the time, I won't say all the time, but most of the time, can be learned or taught. And I like to consider myself to be more inquisitive, not curious. I think curious feels very casual, or being inquisitive means intent. So I tend to be very inquisitive. So I want to learn meaningful and I can pick up on things very, very quickly. Like I said, we had to create everything on our own. So you have to be fast on that learning uptick real quick. So I think for me, the biggest struggle on transitioning out of entertainment, because I've done that and I'm grateful for the amount of impact I was able to have. And I should mention, outside of working at Paramount doing my day-to-day job, I volunteered to do DE&I and worked as an extension of HR for our Office of Global Inclusion. And so there's all of that roundup with all the things that I had to do. I had to put on events just like this. I got to interview talent or senior management or other people. So there are all those skill sets that I have in that other part of my life when I was at Paramount. For trying to break into other areas, I think that there is a misconception that I can't pick up things quickly, or, oh, you only know entertainment, so you may not be a good match in healthcare. And I will say we've had people from different backgrounds get into Paramount, and I go, it's learning. I'm a really good trainer. I'm going to give you all the reasons why we do it, the business reasons why. I'm going to show you all the systems, and I'm going to give you the tools to be successful. I think any job that you end up going into, if you have good onboarding, that person will be successful. But you need to have the right person with the right mindset who's going to be able to come in and really just help facilitate whatever are the big core needs for those teams. So I think the biggest misconception is not recognizing that entertainment is a very strategic business and all those skill sets are transferable. And I haven't, I've done a lot of professional, career courses, paid a ton of money for them, by the way. And a lot of them are going, well, what specific companies do you want to get into? And I said, I don't have any specific companies. If I was saying I wanted to work in entertainment, I would say, okay, well, I've done Disney, I've done Paramount. Maybe I look at Warner Brothers or Universal. I could give you a very specific answer if I was saying I want to stay in that industry. But I'm wanting to break out of that industry. And there are all these different companies that I could engage with. If there's something that I've looked at that's at SoCal Edison, that's energy, that's our utilities. Does that mean that I can't learn it or I can't be successful there? No. Does it mean that I've been in it? Well, I've had my power cut off lots of times and I was a part of the Eaton Canyon fire. So am I aware of everything that SoCal Edison does? As a consumer, yes. Does that mean I can't contribute to the role under corporate? No, I think I absolutely can. So I think that's probably some of the more difficult spots is trying to navigate out in the current marketplace. There's such an influx of great candidates. There are great people that are all like some of them are my connections and hopefully some of them will be my future connections. And they're great people and they're looking for work just like I am. But I think the difficult part is getting past interviews where they just see the paramount and they can't see the person.
Yeah, and I would agree. And I think, what you've described from your skill sets can transfer to any industry. I mean, it's not limited to, but the one thing I've noticed also being, working primarily in telecommunications and technology for 20 plus years, similar process. If you try to go outside that industry, you can't even really get your foot in the door. Because I think what'll happen is if you do, then you're able to talk about the things you've accomplished. And a good recruiter can see, okay, that can transfer to whatever the company may be. It may take you a minute to kind of get up to their speed from a lingo perspective or how they do things. But if you're good, you're good.
Yeah.
I mean, or at least that's how I look at it. I also think it's good too is if a company takes a chance on a new person, you will also bring in new ideas that they may have not looked at. Because a lot of times what will happen is, and it doesn't matter the industry, if you hire somebody specifically from an industry because they have that background, the experience is awesome and hopefully they are really good. And if they come from a different company, they may have different ways to do it, which is what you want to see. Because if they come from the same company, you're always just doing the same thing. You're not learning anything or doing anything differently. And over time, usually that doesn't help a company.
Look, I think for job postings, for someone who works in comms who did do employee engagement, who did have to read what the business piece is, when you are looking to hire someone who's outside of your company or someone who's inside of your company, the role that you're looking for is you're saying, are we wanting to have upward mobility for people who are within the company because they can continue to contribute to our success? And I think that that's wonderful. And I love to see that companies do that. If you are looking for someone who can help reinvigorate things, you're going to have to look for an outside candidate because they have experienced things that may be different. And there may be some great ideas that they can bring to the table. Not to say that someone internally can't do the same thing, but with a different mindset, hopefully they'll be able to convey that in a way that allows the people who are in that company to think of things in a different way. I call it turning the dial. Sometimes all you need to do is just turn the dial just 1 or 2 degrees to view the same situation differently. But you'll be able to see it with a different view that allows you to have a better understanding of how you can work within, whether it's a problem, you're looking for a solution, you want to make things better. Sometimes that's all you need to do. So by hiring someone who's outside of your said business, you're able to get all of that knowledge of, I've started things from the bottom and I know how to maintain them. So that's something that I can deliver for them. But if they're looking someone who they engage with it and they can kind of tweak it, then yeah, go with that candidate. So I think really businesses, and especially when you look at these job descriptions these days, you know what, I posted something, I don't know if you saw it. I posted it as a funny on a Friday because I think Fridays are meant to be fun because we all need to realize that laughter gives us some of that, the greatest stress release that we really need. And it was help wanted, must be 18 years or older, must have 20 years of experience. And I said, this really kind of, in one picture, makes it feel when you look at some job descriptions where I go, I don't know if you really know what you're looking for because you're asking for a whole lot, but I don't know if you have done the self reflection you need as a hiring manager or what you need for the team to really understand what you're needing. I also don't agree with people posting stuff that if you're going to hire internally, then just leave it internally on your website. Don't put stuff onto job boards to get, sometimes 5,000 candidates submitting a hopeful, and then all of a sudden you just get an email that says the position's now been closed. I think there needs to be a better way of engaging with new hires. So,
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that comes up a lot. I mean, sometimes you don't even get the email saying, it's closed or, they've even looked at it. I mean, I've seen numerous posts and I've experienced it where I've applied for something and it's been 6 months, we'll say, and then I get a notification like, oh, and I'm like, did I even apply for that? And then I go back, I'm like, oh yeah, I did, and it was 6 months ago.
yeah.
And you kind
Or
of
my
move
favorites
on.
are they repost. They repost the same position and they tweak it a little bit. And I go, okay.
Yeah, I've reached out directly to a couple because I've seen reposts where I've not even got a response, and it's like, hey, I've seen you reposted this, and I still don't. I mean, so this isn't, the recruiters have a tough enough job. Imagine,
Absolutely.
especially with, I mean, so I guess this kind of goes into the question, like you haven't had to look for a job for 20 plus years. What's the
Yeah.
most shocking and surprising thing you've experienced during your job search compared to what it was when you initially,
Compared to 20 years ago, people were still using faxes.
yeah, well, that's true.
I mean, I think the biggest challenge for me when I left, and look, I am absolutely grateful that I was able to stay at Paramount for almost 22 years. I don't know a lot of people who can say that they've stayed at a company. They have managed to, and I will say this proudly, I survived some serious layoffs and restructures. We called them slaughters. And so I survived those and I made it. And I made it that long and I'm grateful for that. But I think some of the biggest challenges for me were how do I write a resume that gets past now an ATS system? What the hell is an ATS system? What does that mean? Like, how does this all work? And I needed to, now look, I absolutely love breaking tech. I love breaking tech. My IT team loved me because I would get into systems before they launched and then I would test them to try and break them so we could figure out what was going on. And I love AI. So I was trying to kind of engage with a lot of different AI stuff that was free that I can kind of get in and see. I would try and ask other people on LinkedIn who I knew, like, hey, how does this sound? And then I realized trying to do it all myself it wasn't doing me any favors, if that makes sense. So I realized I needed to ask for help. Just helpful hint for anyone. Asking for help is not a bad thing. It is a great thing because it means you don't know everything. So you need to ask questions to learn more. I am more impressed with new hires that ask questions than they don't. So I'll put that little tidbit of tip out there. But I realized I needed help because I couldn't figure it out on myself. I just couldn't. So I went to a professional writer, sat with her. Her name was Star. She was wonderful. She kind of wrote it out, but it still wasn't polished enough to be the way that it should be. So I ended up going into full panic mode because my severance was starting to dwindle. And I knew I needed to quickly get a job. And I'm like, it can't be this hard. It wasn't this hard when I was trying to get hired.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when I came into Paramount, I came in as an executive assistant to the senior vice president of North American sales. That's a different kind of entry point than where I am now. So I said, I'm not doing enough. And I love to look at data. So I'm looking at metrics and I'm like, I'm not pacing right. I'm not seeing the type of numbers I need to see. So I need to go back and rethink it. I'm not doing it right. I think if people continue to do the same thing all the time, you're going to get the same results. So you need to strategically kind of shift some of those gears and then track it and go, are you seeing lift? Okay, no, then let's change something else. So I ended up going to this company that I thought was going to be this great thing and they were going to be helping me land a job and they made lots of promises and I paid $7,400 for this course, which I went, but then I thought, but this is what I need to do. This is a self-investment. And they have these things called milestones that you
Mm-hmm.
can that you can go through. They're about 12 milestones. And I made through the first 3 in one day because I said, I am going to focus on this and I'm going to get it done. The biggest thing was it did require me to do some self reflection. And I think for women, especially women, we tend to have that imposter syndrome that gets in the way. It doesn't mean that you can't move away from it. It just means we have to recognize, look, I'm a mom, I'm a caregiver, I have 2 neurodivergent kids. All the traits that I do, even at home, add to my skill set of what I can deliver in an office or for a role. And I don't think people recognize that enough, that they need to go, all of your skill sets, all the things that you do can contribute to what kind of person you show up as in your office, your work environment, whatever that may be. So went through this big, huge class. I did a lot of self-reflection, but I realized, I said, this still isn't enough for me. I still don't feel like this is really helping me get through it. And I redid my entire LinkedIn profile. I started reaching out to people. Note to everyone, sending a personal note sometimes gets you like negative responses than just hitting connect and then walking away. And then you can reach out to them over time to make those relationships. I found out I did a spreadsheet because I thought that would be fun. And I sat and I tracked how many people I reached out to on LinkedIn where I sent a personalized note, not a copy and paste, but a personalized note to everybody. Just to say, I'd love to hear about your journey. I want to know how you did this within comms. I'm coming out of the entertainment industry and I'm just trying to learn as much as possible. I had one woman unconnect with me when I sent her that.
Wow.
Yeah, she's like, I don't want to engage with you. So it's interesting. I think one of the other big things is understanding how to play LinkedIn properly. I don't think it's utilized as much as it possibly could. I wish there was another platform like LinkedIn so you could straddle multiple, I guess, multiple universes or ecosystems where you could have similar experiences, because I don't know if everyone understands that you could really do a whole lot of engaging with people all over the world within your industry or within your field that gives you kind of this great feedback of going, hey, I'm dealing with this. How did you do it? Like there's this whole thing that you can learn outside of the LinkedIn Learn courses that you can do, engaging with other people and building those relationships globally on this platform. But I think the biggest hindrance for me during this was I didn't know what I was doing because I hadn't been in the market for so long. So I had to kind of figure it out on my own. Even though I spent $7,400 on this course, that really didn't help me as much as me doing that self exploration of seeing how people were engaging with it, keeping the same mindset. It's always a growth mindset. Going back and rejiggering my LinkedIn profile, rewriting it because maybe it's not really, maybe I learned some things about myself when I went through an interview and I went, oh, I wish I would have said that. You know what? I need to go back to my LinkedIn profile and rewrite this. And I use AI as a tool, not as it does it all for me. I think that there's tons of AI tools that are out there that are underused or undervalued. I think people just go to ChatGPT and think that's it. But I think like a lot of the key learnings I had was just trying to make myself a better candidate and making sure that I was making as many connections as possible to try and, I built some great fun meetings and connections with people just through comments. Like maybe I had a witty comment on a post, or maybe it was very heartfelt and emotional, and someone else will reach out. And that was person I may not have necessarily engaged with. So I'm so grateful that I can make those connections within the LinkedIn ecosystem that I don't think people utilize enough. Because surprising enough, I've had more strangers like yourself who've reached out who want to engage and help comparative to my small network when I first started, which was maybe 325 people. So people within my own industry, and God love them, I do. I'm not calling you guys out, but I found that strangers ended up wanting to lift me up and facilitate those things that I needed in that moment more than the people who I had worked with for 10, 20 years. So it's quite interesting to see in this marketplace that there are still people who want to engage and curate relationships, and they want to see you succeed and they want to see you get hired. Because I don't see as many of the negative comments that I probably saw just 2 years ago.
Yeah. I think what you're saying, or what I'm saying, especially with talking to yourself and other people, is people all want to help each other. And it's usually the people that have either gone through this recently or are going through it. I think one of your posts or you reposted somebody's, we all want to see people win and get hired. I mean, that's the goal here. When you're younger maybe it's when you're more internal and you're going for one position and there's three other people, you want to beat them out. This is a whole different
There's a
kind.
level of competition.
Yes, but this is a different mindset. This is, hey, we're all looking for a job. It's like a job, not a
Mhm.
specific position, perhaps. So I think that's just a different way to look at it. Now it's like, hey, you see somebody getting, hey, starting a new position or whatever the case may be. Hey, fantastic, great for them. That kind of almost gives you hope as well because they're getting it.
It does. And I don't think anyone should not feel, look, there's going to be where you see people who got let go after you and they got hired before you, and there's that pang of jealousy. I had a wonderful meeting with a woman who is the head of comms for Keck Medical. She was amazing and she lives nearby. I said, we should go get margaritas because I think that's a great way, because you never know where that person may manifest in your life later on. So as long as you are continuing to project this positive energy, things will come to you. And she said, do you think that the things that you have learned while being on laid off have been a negative or a positive for you? And I said, I would say the scale would definitely tip to be more positive because it's giving me a different perspective than I did before. I did not engage with LinkedIn very much before. I remember when LinkedIn, you were invited. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
You were invited to be on LinkedIn. You couldn't just sign on and get access. So I now realize what a powerful tool LinkedIn can be. And I don't think people are utilizing it enough. And I will absolutely stand on my soapbox and say, the minute I get hired, I will be sitting and saying, hey, look, if anyone is looking to work at said company and you need a contact to get in, please reach out to me because I am absolutely here to help lift people up. I am here to pay it forward. I met a guy who was he worked out of Texas for a firm that what they did is they recouped mismanaged medical funds. So like fraudulent stuff or anything else, that's what they do. And he reached out to me randomly. We're not even in the same industry. I would never necessarily engage with him, but he reached out and he's like, what can I do to help facilitate something for you? And it was at a point where like mentally I was in a down spot. I was going down my rabbit hole. And he reached out when I needed him, not realizing it. And he talked me through and said, hey, if you need anything, this is what you can do. And he gave me some suggestions. And I went, that's what I needed. On Monday, I got to speak to a woman who said, oh my gosh, your comment's so funny. I'd love to have a coffee chat with you. And I said, I would love to have that too. And we sat on the phone for an hour and 15 minutes, half of the time just laughing and talking and sharing.
Yeah.
But I recognize that those came from strangers on LinkedIn who were just willing to see other people succeed. And I realized I need to make sure that I continue to do that. So I now am excited when I get to see people get hired because I'm sure that their emotional stress of going, I have to pay bills. I may have family. I may be a caretaker. What if I'm a fur parent? I am stressed out. I don't have anything else. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. One girl, I remember reading a post on her. She's like, I'm scared I'm going to be out on the street. Like, what's going to happen? And to see so many people rally around that is really great. I think it's a disservice if you get hired and you are now either contract, but you're working somewhere. If you're not coming onto LinkedIn at least once or twice a week for an hour or so and just checking your feeds.
Yeah. I think
Because I know
you're
I'll be
right.
doing that.
It's a tool, you're right, that I don't think a lot of people were using. If you use it the right way, it can be beneficial. It may not be today, tomorrow, but long term, it could set you up for
Mhm.
something, hopefully, that will be helpful to you. I want to talk
Absolutely.
about a few of the posts I've seen you either repost or comment on and, get a little bit more. Get a little bit more insight. And I think this is a good one we kind of talked about a little bit already. Talk to me about the quiet champions who have shown up for you recently. I think we kind of went over that a little bit with some of the strangers that have hit.
I didn't I did this. This was a common practice of myself because this came up this has come up multiple times. This will probably come up in every single industry and every single work. Anyone who works in internal comms and deals with senior executives, if you are doing a survey and people feel like there's not enough recognition or there's recognition for only some people and not all, these are the times when you go, who is going to be that person who will walk into a room and say good things and champion you when you're not in the room? I think it's really important for anyone who is a people manager, someone who has someone else who reports to them. This is important all the way up to a chairman and a president. You need to hold a mirror up and say, are you championing for other people that are in the room or that are not in the room? Are you doing that? Because if you are not doing that same thing, why is someone going to do that for you? And I'm pretty sure everyone will agree they would love to have someone champion for them when they're not in the room. And I have been very grateful that I have had, I would say, 3 people at Paramount specifically who I knew who championed for me when I was not in the room and not when I asked for it. And I recognized how powerful that was, how wonderful it made me feel. And I realized I needed to do that again and again and again for myself. So there was a role. I'll give you a really quick example. There was a role for something that I saw a woman post on, and I went, "Oh my God, I'd love this." So you write out your quick elevator pitch that you can post. And I'm like, okay, quick, it goes to her. I did it on a Friday afternoon, not thinking anyone was going to engage it. 2 women who I absolutely adore. One who is become a good friend recently, and one who I knew from Paramount, who we met briefly right before my layoff. Both of them commented without prompting, saying how great I was and that I would be a great fit. It's an example like that that really takes it to the next level when you know you have people like that. So I post things like that, especially on Motivation Mondays, when I need to remember to remind not only myself, but I think others who may not know, of going, are there people in your court who are championing for you when you're not in the room? And if you know those people, celebrate them and tell them how much you appreciate what they do, because I think that's important. But I think also leading by example is important, going, hey, I've tried to do that for when I see it. Like, hey, this person would be great for that. Or I found this job and I think it's amazing. Do you think you want to do it too? I may have a connection over there. Look through my contacts. I'd love to be able to pass that on for you. I don't think we do that enough. I think this job market also kind of makes it tough because everyone's competing to try and get roles. But I want to still hold on to that mindset of going, I need to be that quiet champion for others, just as I've had people quiet champion for me. And remember that. That's what a good manager does. That's what a good leader does. And I have to remember to keep on holding on to that.
I agree. What are some of the boundaries you've set up for yourself, like while you're going through the job search market? Because I know it's a 24/7 job in essence, and you have to do these things, otherwise it can just consume you.
Some of the bad things with looking.
Well, like boundaries, like some people, will set up. Okay, I'm only going to do it, say, from 8 to noon every day. Whatever it does. How do you function to be able to do what you have to do on a daily basis, plus continue to look for a job?
Here's my 2 cents. Take it with a grain of salt. Do with it what you may. But if all you're doing is just replying to every single job with the same resume over and over and over again, you need to stop and self-reflect a little bit on what you want to do. I had a wonderful career coach who made me think about it in that way. I think you need to step away from your computer. If you are on LinkedIn and you're green all the time, you're going to kind of almost get tunnel vision, and you're going to forget to feed your soul, which allows you to show up properly with anything. If you are a parent, if you are a caregiver, if you have a pet or you have friends or you do anything, setting the boundaries where I am only going to go on after 9 o'clock and I'm going to then tune out at 4 o'clock because I need to go make dinner or I need to do something. Finding ways to set those boundaries are important, because these are the boundaries that you're going to set when you get into your new role, because you will get into that new role. And I think the mindset of you got to apply to everything because you don't know what's going to hit, or I'm going to hound and strategic, I call it strategic stalking, when you're looking for people who work like at that company that you're looking for. The strategic stalking, I'm going to keep hunting you down. Like it will drain you. And that doesn't allow you to show up to be your best, whichever role you are. I am mom first. So I need to be able to show up for my children. So I need to be able to set boundaries when I'm hunting or I'm looking for stuff. So I need to step away and let my head kind of reset. I think it's also important that people start to strategically look, what specific roles are you looking for? Are there companies that you're hungering for? I have found that for me, there's not one specific company that I'm looking for because I am ready to try something new. But if you are in an industry where you're working on something, look for those strategic roles that are there. Try and make connection requests to people who work around that kind of role and see if you can get a coffee chat in there. But then step away from the computer. Go. I know it's summer, it's hot. If you can get outside, watch something that makes you laugh. Allow your brain to reset because I think sometimes we get so fixated on if I'm not on LinkedIn 24/7, people won't think that I'm serious. Or if I don't respond immediately, I'm not going to get this thing. I will say what's been weird is I have had more interviews with cold applying than I have been through my network circle, which is growing every week. I make it a point to make sure I expand myself to do that. Also, if you have premium or you can get on like free and you can do LinkedIn Learning, get something that gives you a certificate that you can put on your LinkedIn profile that means something, especially if it's something that you see. You may know how to do it greatly, but if you're able to add that certificate to your LinkedIn site, do it. Absolutely do it. But I think if you have a way, like if you are unemployed and there's nothing else out there to do, find a way to step away from your computer. Find a way to reflect a little bit about where you want to go. Because I found that I ended up going in a different direction after doing that self-reflection work on where I really wanted to be. And I have now focused strategically, use that word a lot, on those roles that I want to be in. I think I've seen some recommendations on there, which I think are trash. Personally, you're only worth your network. No, you're not. You have a lot of great things. You're not just only your network. If you are not networking into your next role, you're lazy. That is not true. I have met countless amazing people who are doing everything they possibly can to try and get a role. And they are not lazy whatsoever. So, but again, I think you need to invest and put your energy into the things that are going to really move the needle for you, whatever that is. And then at that point, you need to step away from your computer because there's other things that are important out there. And I think for people who are working, who literally just sit and zone into their computer all day long, you need to step away because I think for anyone who wants to do quality work, you need to give your brain a chance to be able to give you the right amount of effort so you do quality work, whatever that is.
Yes, and then that would be true for searching for a job, having a job, and especially because now, well, more and more people are returning to work, depending on what industry they're in. But like working from home, you do have to
Yeah.
take you do have to take that time, whether it be a 15-minute lap around the house or, like I said, going outside, depending on the weather, because it does free you up and just lets you refresh. And I think we have to do that as
Mhm.
much screen time that everyone does today, whether it be for anything. Just got to step away, like you said.
For sure.
This one I found
Absolutely.
interesting. How are intercoms pros divorce attorneys?
Wait.
You commented on somebody and they
Oh,
said
God.
something to the effect of how internal, I guess, communication pros are like divorce attorneys.
Okay. As someone who had to deal with a lot of executives and senior executives who I had to deal with, sometimes what we have to do, I would say more, and not necessarily divorce attorneys, I would say more therapists.
Okay.
My couch has been used a lot. I have a lot of secrets in my vault. But sometimes when you need some internal comms people to be able to kind of negotiate how do I help you help yourself so we can mitigate anything? How can I help you to get to where you need to go in a meaningful way? Because that's what intercoms do. This is what we're great at. This is where you lean on us. I think sometimes senior execs don't necessarily always realize that you can't say that. Don't say that. don't even put that in writing. So when it comes to when it comes to lawyers like stepping in going, don't do that. But you can't say that. By the way, you can't say it, especially as senior staff. You can't say that at all, ever, ever, ever. So you have to kind of come in and ask some questions like, what do you want to accomplish? Where do you want to go? I want to give you that golden feather that you can put in your cap, that you can brag about to everybody else. I am more than happy to give you that. But you have to be gentle on how you lead them to the solution of what works best, because you have to make sure you have to do it what's right for the business, what's right for the end audience that you're working with, while still making your executive look great, because you don't want to ever have them make a misstep ever. So there's a level of protection. Divorce attorney, you have to protect them sometimes from themselves. But
Yeah.
yes, you do. I find that I think it was one that I commented on the other day. We were talking about boss keeping, and it was, how do you strategically help your boss do the best that they can do while also offering a therapy couch where everyone can come into your office or your virtual office, whatever you do, and you can then have those meaningful, sometimes tough conversations strategically, with care, with gloves, depending on the personality that's sitting on your couch. But then you can help them recognize, how do we do things the right way to encourage, for intercoms, employee engagement, or we get employees to do the things that we need to do, or we need to be able to raise how our survey has been calculated, and how do we then make them look like they were the ones who brought the solution. I think sometimes hardest part is, and I mentioned this in another post, it's sometimes we come with all the answers. Like, we know this because we have listening sessions with our employees. We make sure we actively listen to them. We poll people. We're there at events and we listen to those questions and we remember those. We write those down. We make those hey, I need to make sure that I handle this. And you bring solutions to your senior execs that then have to approve it and they want to move forward with it. I think the hardest problem is that we can be the role models that do it, but unless we get senior executive buy-in, and they're going to then also, you need to don't say, do as I say, not do as I do. You want to make sure that they're going to also lead by also doing those things that we need to do to make changes, to make things better for employees. Because when employees are happy, or when they feel that they are appreciated and supported, they are going to turn out better quality, more production, and they're going to be more efficient in their day-to-day. When they are undervalued, when they are stressed and burnt out, and they're dealing with too much stuff with no help, no support, it's going to slow all that stuff down. And the quality and the efficiency of that one employee or a group of employees will now inhibit your ability to be able to get that ROI that you want to see at the end of the month, or you want to see at the end of the quarter, or you need to turn in because you're going to now do an investor call. That takes months of work in the past to try and get through. So yeah, I mean, you're kind of like an attorney, part therapist, part cheerleader, going, you can do this, you're great.
And especially with people higher up, you have to do those things with their egos and the like.
Oh yeah. Yes, very much so. And this isn't to say anything against senior staff. For intercoms, we have to make sure we keep our pulse on the employees,
Yes,
while also
absolutely.
keeping a pulse on senior management and what is our business goal for this month, this quarter, this year that we need to be able to get to. We have to make sure that we're kind of juggling a lot of things at the same time. But I don't know what kinds of stressors sometimes our president is dealing with. I think it's, I do want to add this because I think it's really important, especially when we talked about what kinds of things that you need to do. And it's a huge sticking point for me. There needs to be a level of trust. I need senior management and employees and anyone in between, regardless of your role or your title, to know that you can trust me. So if you ask me to do something, I will get it done, period, full stop. That's an earned thing, by the way. I am very grateful that I had senior staff that could walk into my office and go, hey, can you handle this? And walk away with no real detail. Like, can you give me more insight? And I could then, since I knew that executive, I could go, yeah, I'll take care of it. When do you need it? Okay, I'll get it by then. If there's any other hiccups, I'll let you know. They trusted me enough that they knew I would take care of it. I also was grateful in my DE&I space that I could have individuals reach out to me and they could talk about some of the issues that they're going through. And then I could hopefully help them either reach out to benefits, find their contact in HR who could help them, give them my expertise or provide any insights to help them get through whatever that is. That's a huge thing to have. And I think it's super important for any employee to recognize that there needs to be a level of trust that you have with your boss, a level of trust that you can have with your, with your peers, a level of trust that you can hopefully have with senior management if you're able to curate that relationship. I think that's a huge piece in the equation. So when you are dealing or trying to solve issues or find solutions for things, or even just things that aren't necessarily a problem yet, but you want to make better, knowing that the people around you will trust you will get you that buy-in much faster than if you just tried to pitch it and force it on through.
Yeah, works in everyday life. That's absolutely the case. Another post that I found interesting because I understand understand it completely. You said something in the fact of being unemployed, you're being judged by how you survive it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, I remember when I got laid off and the amount of people that reached out and said, I thought you would be the last one on the Titanic. Now, the funny part is Paramount produced Titanic. So I said, yeah, so I would be the guy with the violin as the ship goes down.
Yeah.
They're like, yes, that's what we figured you would do. And when you are laid off, especially like for me, for some people who've gone through layoffs are like, oh, I kind of get it. Was it easy to turn off and go, I don't have to look at my email? Yes. But that mental part of how are people going to now look at me knowing I have been laid off? I wasn't needed anymore. Why would someone want to pick me up? And there have been some interesting commentary on LinkedIn and other portals, by the way, other platforms that have said, I won't hire anybody if they're unemployed. And I had to make sure that I took a step backward and said, you need to make sure that you readjust your bias, because it is a bias, on how you reflect on people who are unemployed, because now you're one of them. So were there any biases that you had that you then thought of other people? You need to check yourself first before you start saying anything. But I realize, even though I may do that, as you know, and you've probably seen commentary on LinkedIn and other platforms as well, where people will judge you in a negative way if you've been laid off or if you've been out of the market for any period of time. I mean, I'm sure people are judging me. I have been unemployed since February of 2024. I took 2 months off because I was absolutely burned out and I needed that time to recognize I need to engage with my kids again. I'm also involved with Girl Scouts. I was cookie chair, so we were in the full thick of cookie season. So I fully dumped myself into that, which was good. But I have been on the hot hunt, what I call my Hunger Games of job search since that time. I haven't stopped. I didn't give up. So I recognize that there are lots of other people out there, whether they're on the LinkedIn platform or they're not, they're looking in other ways, like on any other job boards out there, that you really should never judge anyone or bring in a bias when you look at a resume or even, anyone's profile ever. You really shouldn't, because the fact that we as unemployed people are still showing up, we are still making efforts, we're still growing, we're still learning, and we're still wanting to get in the game. I think that needs to be an important talking point that continues to reverberate through all of these different platforms, because we didn't give up. Most of us, especially with so many people who've been laid off, I think it was a couple months ago, Microsoft laid off 7,000 people.
Yeah, it was
maybe more. I think maybe 10. Could you imagine working and doing something that you loved? You were working in gaming at Microsoft and you were like, oh, we're going to do all this great stuff. And then the next day, we don't need you anymore. And I need to always make sure that I revive myself and say, I have purpose. I can make great things happen. You know why? Because I do great things for my kids, or I can do great things for the community that I'm in. I've started trying to find ways to help my local city or, anybody else, especially for those. I have a passion for allyship and advocacy for those who are neurodivergent. Will I be the first one to speak up for you? Absolutely. Be the first one to hire someone if I have a chance who's neurodivergent? 100%. But I think when it comes back to the viewpoints that people have about someone who's unemployed. I think the bias piece is the most damaging. And it's the damaging for those who aren't unemployed that are that. So you could be working as a recruiter, you could be working in talent acquisition, you could be in HR, you could be a hiring manager and judging us unfairly. Making posts like that to remind everybody, we still show up every single day working, putting in all this effort and not getting paid a dime. So if that's not something that can be highlighted and recognized, I don't know what else should be.
And if you haven't experienced it, like anything, you just don't know. What led. I think your comment was off a post that somebody was unemployed for, I think it was close to 2 years or over 2 years, and the
Yeah.
person said, "I would have worked at McDonald's before I let that happen." And
That's
it's not like
so
you don't get a
ridiculous. I'm like, you
choice.
have no idea.
Yeah, because we would
Because
all. I mean, yeah,
that's a person who probably has never, ever, ever had to be unemployed. And they've never had to worry about, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to support my family if you have one? What if you're taking care of your parents or a family member? What if you're single and you don't have necessarily any family around you and you're just not wanting to get kicked out of your apartment? That's where I think this is, I mean, I'll dovetail it into DE and I think this is where DE and I had such a impactful piece, a part of all of that, people who understand what DE and I is all about, because you do have to tackle those biases that you have towards people and making those kind of, I will say, uninformed. I don't want to say uneducated. I think that's a bias by making that comment, by saying you're uneducated. I think just by not being aware can do a lot of damage. And if that's the type of attitude you bring into your office, you're not going to have a really good team around you. That's my personal thought, because you won't be willing to take a chance on someone who might be great, who just happens to have been affected by a change that happened at a company that was completely out of their control. They didn't get to choose this.
and that's the difference with the big layoffs. I mean, is you don't have control. I mean, it's one of those things that's widespread. Some of this, hopefully, this will all land on their feet somewhere, but it'll take time, especially in the tech industry. Um, there's every industry's challenged at the stage based on where my experience is. That's where I focus in on. So it seems like it's bigger than anybody, but that's not the case because every industry would tell you probably the same thing, which is true. It's just where my focus is.
Oh, sure.
We'll wrap it up with this. With your experience, what's the best leadership quality you've learned? Because you've worked for a lot of powerful people in your industry.
Yes.
What is the number one leadership quality you'd like to take with you in your next position, whatever that may be?
Empathy. I will couple that with something else. This man, his name is Andrew Gumpert. I will forever remember this man. We were on a call with our ERG group, and there was a woman who came in and she was talking about, her son was just diagnosed with autism. And, she was worried about, we had been off because of COVID. And so she was worried that she was going to have to come in, but she needed to be able to take her son to sometimes appointments. And now she was worried that she might get fired because she may have to do some work from home to be able to try and support her son. And Andrew Gumpert was our COO of Paramount Pictures. And he said to her, don't you worry about that. You let me manage that. I want to meet with you after this call and you tell me everything that's going on with you. And I will speak to your boss and I will help you. To see a COO reach out to a woman who was an assistant to a team was, all of us came back with I just love Andrew Gumpert. This is so great. That man walked his talk every single day. And when you see someone who literally just breathes this stuff, like he is a walking example of what you should do, that really resonates with going, how do I show up as a leader every single day? How do I want to have that every single day? And he was an empathetic, lovely man who was willing to help anyone that needed it. And that was a huge step, because I don't think enough leaders take themselves out for a minute and just listen as a human being. Like, how do I make sure that I am helping these employees, allow them to do their best and show up at work every single day? That's what leadership is for. That's what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to lead, and I absolutely love that. But I do want to say one of the other big qualities that I think in my next leader, or if I have a team, how I would want to show up as a leader, would to actively listen. There are a lot of people show up to meetings. I watch them all. They would sit with their phones and or they would have it down here and they would be looking at it. You're not actively listening to anything anybody's saying, even if it's work related or whether you're having a team meeting. I would sit and I would watch everyone, even though we had people all over the globe. I would watch every single little box on our Zoom call to note how that person was engaging with this call. And I could tell who was actively listening and who wasn't.
Yeah.
And actively listening, meaning you are taking in what they're saying, and it allows you to go, okay, I have a bunch of active items that I need to take care of, or that person really wasn't engaged today and that's really out of character, or I don't feel like they understood me. That may mean I need to do a follow up to try and figure out is something going on and I need to help you. So I think that empathy and active listening actually are connected in one to some degree. But if I had my chance to pick one over the other, I would see empathy first, followed very closely by active listening.
Yeah. And they're both important. And they, like you said, they do kind of go hand in hand.
Yes.
And it can, help out. Good leaders, yeah, have to do that.
You know when you feel a really good leader walk in the room. Like you can feel it. You know it by the way that they engage with people. It's a different feeling. And you know when those leaders don't care either.
Yeah, it is obvious, and you don't even have to report directly to them.
No.
It's, we've all seen it, whether it be in person or even on TV. Sometimes you're like, okay, that person is probably, or they put on a really good show, but it depends. But
You can see that they're reading everything that I just wrote for them to say.
yeah, yes, yes. Their eyes are going to the left or the right, depending on how they have it set up. Well,
Yeah.
Kristen, I appreciate you taking the time today to discuss it. I think you have a lot of great insight. I think a lot of people in your situation where they've worked for one company for 20 years, whether they're trying to stay in the same industry or going to another one, hopefully the recruiters out there see the benefits of what I think is big. I come from the same generation. I think it's great to work for, one or two companies, for your career. I don't think
Yeah.
that's a negative, and I think that should be looked as a positive. One would assume that your next one will be another 10 to 20 years, in the next role.
Who
And I think
knows?
that's
Who knows?
yeah, and I think that's a big win for any company.
I would hope that they look at someone who earned that loyalty, who earned that trust from the company to survive that long, and someone who is as inquisitive as I am, that is willing to look at success as attainable. We just need to break it down on how we get there. I would hope that people can see that. So maybe this will manifest into some great things for me in August.
I
So
hope
I
so.
appreciate you for taking time with me and listening to me ramble on about some fun stuff and things I'm passionate about.
No, I think it was your riddle that caught my eye. I was reading your thing. I think you had the riddle, and as I said, I was horrible at riddles, but it made me want to reach out to you and find out a little bit more about you. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I wish you a great week.
You too. Thank you. Bye bye.